Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 6.
Good evening, everyone. The Cass County Jail is on lockdown tonight, and there are concerns about finding space for infected individuals. At least one inmate in the general population has tested positive for COVID-19. Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley talked with the sheriff today on what this means for the rest of the inmates and their protocols going forward.
Cass County Jail protocol states any new arrest must spend their first 5 days in isolation to monitor for any COVID symptoms before being released to the general population. And Sheriff Jesse Johnner says that was done with today's positive inmate, saying they were booked on November 13th and isolated until the 18th.
This particular person was double bunked with another individual. And both of those individuals started to develop some mild symptoms, like just a mild cough.
Johnner says the cellmate tested negative and says the positive inmate has since been moved back to an isolation cell with negative airflow.
They're doing fine. They just developed some mild symptoms.
Johnner says all 300 inmates and jail staff will be tested on Monday and says hopefully results will come within 2 or 3 days to lift the jail's lockdown. And as for the jail's new inmate protocols, Johnner says he's still confident they're working, saying while the guidelines will still be reviewed, there's not much wiggle room as the jail has ran at or near capacity for the last several weeks.
If we move that to 7 days, we're going to run out of isolation areas, given the fact of how many people are coming into the facility every day.
Saying while they can create more isolation rooms throughout the facility, it's not an ideal situation for anyone.
So by just knocking off 2 days, that gives us enough room where people are rotating out of that isolation as new people are coming in.
In Fargo, Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
The sheriff says as testing efforts ramp up in the state, he would like to have some sort of regular testing for both inmates and staff. However, until more tests are available, he wants testing to continue to be focused on healthcare workers and long-term care facilities. Turning now to the forecast, tomorrow looks to be the pick day of the weekend, but first Nathan tells us what's in store for your Friday night.
Yeah, Stacy, tomorrow for Small Business Saturday, things look fantastic for those folks stepping outdoors to do some local shopping. And tonight, not looking too bad either as we wrap up any of those Black Friday plans. A live look right now from our Home of Economy Skycam in Grand Forks shows a little bit of that wind there on those flags in the Home of Economy parking lot. But notice things very quiet out there by and large. And there's those flags, just a little bit of wind there. Affecting those flags. But things are quiet in the satellite and radar department. Look at that, just a few thin clouds there into, say, northern Minnesota, but that's about it. Clear skies then persist for most everybody else with perhaps a few thin passing clouds here or there. But the coolest air is in Baudette and Bemidji, 29 degrees there, also 27 in Wadena as another one of the cooler spots. Still holding on to 36 degrees right now in Fargo. We've cooled it down to 32 degrees for those folks stepping outdoors in Grand Forks, 40 still in Jamestown. A beautiful evening there in the James River Valley. There's those south winds that were affecting those flags in the Home of Economy Skycam parking lot, and we're seeing those south winds keeping our temperatures mild tonight. So temperatures overnight, Stacy, will be well above average, and into tomorrow, as you were saying, Saturday, pick of the weekend, but I'm tracking a cold front for Sunday, and that cold front's going to bring some big changes for the second half of the weekend, so we'll break that down coming up here in a couple minutes.
But not too cold, right?
Okay.
Like a little cold.
It's a little cold.
But not like scary cold.
It'll be a little cold, a little
Right.
windy, not scary cold, but it's going to be blustery on Sunday. So
Important caveat.
That's a little tease to what I'm talking about coming up.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah.
Well, in Crookston tonight, police are trying to figure out what led to the stabbing of a 16-year-old boy. It happened at around 5:30 this morning in the 400 block of South Ash. After an investigation, police arrested a 14-year-old boy. He and the victim knew each other. Officers say although the victim's injuries are serious, it doesn't appear that they're life-threatening. Police are asking the public to come forward with information about another stabbing that sent a man to the hospital. This one in Grand Forks. Police got a call about a disturbance in the 400 block of North 7th Street around 7:30 last night. Witnesses told police that someone was stabbed, but officers couldn't find a victim. They later got a call from the hospital about a patient with multiple stab wounds. Police arrested 45-year-old Eldry Lane after an investigation. The victim has serious but not life-threatening injuries. Authorities say distracted driving is what caused a crash this morning near Grand Forks. 25-year-old Madison Svegdahl was driving a GMC Terrain on Highway 2, 7 miles west of Grand Forks. Another woman was driving a Nissan Pathfinder in front of her with a 5-year-old and 10-month-old in the car. Officials say Svegdahl slammed into the back of the Nissan. The 5-year-old has minor injuries. No one else was hurt. The Minnesota Department of Health is reporting a record number of COVID-related deaths in a single day. Today's total death rate reaches 101. It's the highest we've reported so far. In total, nearly 3,500 people have died in Minnesota. You can always see the latest COVID numbers by heading over to our VNL News app or taking a look at the bottom of your screen in the beginning of every newscast. Governor Tim Walz released a statement about this record number of deaths, saying, as we hit this somber milestone, we owe those families a promise. We must promise them that their loved ones did not die in vain. We must honor them by fighting this virus at every turn, and we must redouble our efforts to protect one another. As a whole, the United States hit another grim milestone in the fight against COVID-19. The U.S. has surpassed 13 million coronavirus cases as of today. According to NBC News data, more than 264,000 people have died. Meanwhile, the true number of those coronavirus cases in the U.S. may be much higher than what's being reported. CDC researchers created a model which found that by the end of September, an estimated 53 million people had been infected with COVID-19. That means the infections were about 8 times higher than the confirmed cases CDC reported at the time, which was less than 7 million. The authors wrote that most of the unreported cases were either asymptomatic or mild infections. On this day after Thanksgiving, President-elect Joe Biden remains low-key but is taking the time to give thanks to Native Americans. This comes as President Trump continues his crusade to turn around the election results. Susan McGinnis has more on both the president-elect and the president making plans for the future.
President-elect Joe Biden remaining low-key in Rehoboth, Delaware this day after Thanksgiving, but taking time to give thanks to the nation's indigenous communities on this Native American Heritage Day. Biden expected to announce more cabinet picks early next week. Meanwhile, President Trump continuing his Twitter claims that the presidential election was fraudulent after indicating to reporters Thursday without specifics that it's not over yet.
I think that there will be a lot of things happening between now and the 20th. Of January. A lot of things.
President Trump remaining mum on a potential run for president in 2024, but weighing in on the next critical election, the January 5th Senate runoff in Georgia. The president tweeting he will go to Georgia to campaign for the Republican incumbents, but some believe his rhetoric about rigged elections could keep voters from turning out.
The best case Democrats have to make in this election is to let Donald Trump go out there, say his insane things, say his destabilizing things about democracy. He's doing the Democrats' work for them by continuing on with these shenanigans.
Also today, a Philadelphia federal appeals court rejected President Trump's latest effort to challenge Pennsylvania's election results. The court saying calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. If the Trump campaign appeals, the case could reach the U.S. Supreme Court. Susan McGinnis, NBC News, Washington.
It looks like that may happen. A Trump legal advisor tweeted on to SCOTUS after the ruling. Work on the setup for inauguration is buzzing outside the White House. Crews were sawing, nailing, and measuring, constructing viewing stands for the ceremony, which is planned to take place on the west lawn of the Capitol. Planning for the inauguration began back in July. Its theme, Our Determined Democracy, Forging a More Perfect Union. Coming up on Valley News Live at 6, crowds at today's Plaid Friday event downtown Fargo shatter expectations.
And today's almanac in Fargo shows 39 degrees, that high temperature, which is about 9 degrees above average for this time of year and short of that 54-degree record set back in 1899. And Grand Forks also seeing those temperatures well above average for this time of year, 11 degrees. We've got more above average air working into our neck of the woods as we speak. We'll have your weekend forecast next.